Hi all. As mentioned, I thought it would be nice to have a look at some of the games of Vera Menchik, not just her game against Botvinnik in the previous instalment of this series. So, in the Hastings tournament of 1931, Vera Menchik did very well and had some very interesting games. Vera Menchik was a British Czech player who gained the first women's world chess champion title, and she did compete in tournaments with some of the world's leading masters, and the Hastings tournament was a key tournament she played in many times. Her father was actually born in Bohemia while her mother was English. He was the manager of several estates owned by the nobility in Russia, and his wife was a governess of the children of the estate owner, according to Wiki. Vera Menchik was actually born in Moscow in 1906, and she had a sister who was also a chess player, Olga Menchik. She was born a year later, 1907. So when she was 9 years old, her father gave her a chess set and taught her how to play. When she was 15, her club organised a chess tournament and she came second. Actually, there's a very well done documentary video by my good friend Jessica Fisher-Queen, and I'll put a link to that in the description of the video so you can see a more detailed biography. It's very unfortunate that during the Second World War bombing, both sisters died. It was a V1 bomb, a predecessor to a doodlebug type bomb, predecessor to a cruise missile type weapon. So it was for the terror bombings of London, unfortunately. So this is why I think it's important that we lost a lot of great chess players during World War II, and I am keen to sort of try and give an idea of how they played, the style of play. Now, her style of play could have also been influenced by Jeza Maroczy. She was a pupil of Jeza Maroczy, and she also started, originally before that, John Jewett, a lesser known player. So, okay, let's get on to this game. So in the Hastings tournament of 1931, d4 from Mir Sultan Khan, knight f6, a solid reply from Vera, c4, e6, as though it might be a Nimzo Indian. After knight c3 though, instead of bishop b4 we see d5, so Queen's Gambit declined, and now Mir takes on d5, e takes d, knight f3, and now Vera Menchik plays c6. Now, often in this position, the most common move is actually bishop g5. So bishop g5 and usually bishop e7 here. But actually, this is a little bit of a nuance perhaps. Queen c2, and interestingly now, the bishop goes to d6. So what is Mir up to? Well, with Queen c2, it's like giving an impression he might be interested in some sort of hack attack game. He's going to castle queenside. And actually, he now plays e3, closing in his bishop, not bothering to pin the knight. Here, I think bishop g5 is still the most popular move, pinning the knight anyway. And it's a different kind of game to what we're going to get. We're actually going to get quite a violent continuation now after e3, even though it looks quite modest. Knight bd7, bishop d3, and black now castles, and we see bishop d2. So why is the bishop being kept here? Well, white wants to castle queenside. This is potentially one of Mir Sultan Khan's most direct looking games. He's going to try and get an attack against the black king, but is it justified? Rook e8, and now hyper aggressive h4, as though just knight g5. Is there a little bit of contempt here or something creeping in just to attack like this in this crude way? Knight f8. With these knights it's difficult to make black on h7. Both knights looking at h7. White castles queenside. So the scene is set. Very direct play from white, but c6 doesn't just passively reinforce d5. Vera now plays b5. Why not? Positionally, it's going to get control of some key squares like e4. And also, this is going to be dangerous for that b file. What is this b pawn doing in relation to white's king? So already, the engine suggests black's slightly better here already. White's construction is a little bit on the crude side. It features lack of control of central squares a little bit, given b4's coming, and white really doesn't want to play a3. That would just make things worse. a3, in fact, we could just play a5, and then it's just not very good, this peeling open the a file. So this looks precarious for white. Knight g5 is played. So Sulthan Khan's playing a kind of fishing pole attack. You know, black is not really going to voluntarily open up this h file and activate this rook. So in fact that's totally ignored, that knight. Black now just plays a5. This gives the option sometimes that if a4 is played and that's reinforced, say, well here it's difficult to reinforce it because the bishop's looking at a5, then b4 without knight a4, because sometimes this kind of maneuver is annoying. But here Mir commits actually to playing e4 in this position. Quite committal. Okay, he's opening up his bishop. He's weakening the d4 pawn a little bit though. So it's not just king safety, but you know, the structure and central squares. These are other concerns which need to be managed here. b4, and black's losing a little bit of central control now. The knight's driven here. Is it really going to use that c5 square? Well, actually, if it's going to use the c5 square, what is holding that up? The d4 pawn. Vera, Menchik, now plays d takes e4, exposing potentially some frontal attack soon. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes. And now, instead of just passively defending, this is on the c file anyway. That would be very useful for say bishop d7, but white's not going to take there. White's going to play something like king b1 and try and use the c5 square. Vera plays energetically with bishop e6, hitting a2, and the idea is revealed now that white's not going to have a cozy position. If white gets a chance, white might try and consolidate with this sort of stuff using the c5 square. But Vera pounces now. Can you guess the move she plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Of course, b3, positional sacrifice of a pawn temporarily. After a takes, rook b8, pressure. Don't let white consolidate. The lines need to be kept open here. So immediately, horribly threatening bishop takes b3 from white's perspective anyway. So knight c5 protecting b3. But now this is taken. So renewing the threat of bishop takes b3 of d takes. So after queen takes c5, getting out of the skewer at least, bishop takes b3 is still played. This pawn's being weakened, and one of white's attack. White hasn't got any attack. What's this pawn doing here? Is this rook really going to attack black? White's king is under scrutiny here. The rook has to move. Rook d e1. Now knight e6, forking that weak pawn and the queen. This pawn is really not helping to take that pawn. Knight takes d4 is looking, for example, strong here. Knight takes d4, and what does white do? It's horrible. Horrible position. Say this, rook takes e4 is actually crushing. For example, like this. Check. So there's dangers for the white king already. That pawn definitely can't be taken. So queen, the queen goes to c3, losing the d4 pawn. So pawn up, centre pawn has been munched. Queen takes, knight takes. So can Vera push this through to a win? White does have the bishop pair, but the king safety has been compromised. f3, a4. And in fact, a3 looks like a serious threat just to open up the line here. Bishop f4, rook bc8, moving out of the way of the rook, of the bishop, pardon me. Bishop d3, knight e6, hitting the bishop. Bishop goes to e5, c5. It would be nice for this pawn to come here. Bishop b5, hitting the rook. That moves. Rook e4. Mir hasn't been able to display much coordination of any sort of attack in this game. After knight d4, hitting the bishop, and he gives up the bishop pair now. If the bishop moves, where can the bishop move? In fact, it doesn't seem to have too many good squares. If it goes here, bishop c2 check. So this knight can't be tolerated there. If the bishop goes here, onto d3, c4. This is strong, simple and strong. If takes here, and black's doing very well, winning. So bishop takes d4 is played, giving black a nice pass pawn, guided by the bishop here on its destination square. Bishop d3, blocking the pawn for a moment. Rook b8. So now a3 is the intention. King a1, trying to get out of the way of that. Rook b4, supporting this pawn, means this rook is now freer to move. Rook he1. Okay, back row mate being threatened. Bishop e6, stopping that. And now a3 is a very serious issue for white. Rook e5. a3 is played here. So here, if taking, black would just play this, and that's pretty nasty. The bishop covers a2, so rook a3 is difficult to actually meet here. So that pawn can't really be taken. b3 is played. So another pawn bites the dust. 2 pawns up. Bishop c4. Vera doesn't mind this little cheapo on the back rank. She's willing to give back a pawn. Rook b2. Rook on the 7th. She's got this big passed d pawn. Bishop takes e6. F takes. White doesn't bother taking this pawn. It's doing no good. He plays actually rook a5. And now we see d3. This pawn is huge. Rook takes a3. What else? White is lost. d2. Rook d1. And now rook c2 threatens rook c1. And here, Mir Sultan Khan was forced to resign. The reason is that if king b1 to parry that, then actually rook dc8 threatens to win an entire rook. So it doesn't matter if white gets behind the pawn now. Rook c1 is actually winning this rook. Can't be taken as that's queening, so that'll be it. So a very, very neat game from Vera with black, faced against this very crude, kind of disrespectful type of attack, really. This kind of h4 and knight g5. Black really had the stronger attack, basically, with tempo gains on a very important knight here on c3, and then leading to a weakened d4 pawn. It's a great example of how to counter-attack and keep calm. You know, no weaknesses really here, not even moving a single pawn or encouraging white's piece activity at all. Just white was really badly crushed without too much counterplay. So a great game for Vera in this Hastings tournament. And she lived near Hastings, actually. That's where they kind of moved to originally, near Hastings. And so she was able to play in this Hastings tournament a number of times. And there's another great game in this tournament that I'd like to show you against Max Erva. Okay, so, but this was a game which I think shows great skill. I think you'll agree, for Vera Menchik. So, a worthy women's world champion. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.